quick backstory. I officially got licensed in construction in 2007, which if anybody remembers, 2007, 8, 9, 10 was probably the golden age of remodeling and construction. Um, because work was so abundant. That's my joke. But anyway, I got licensed in 2007, and I started off initially with an ad in the Penny Saver magazine and the Mercury News. And at the time, they would sell ads by the half inch or inch, so I would buy a 1 inch ad, and it was only typeface, no graphics. Uh, Construction and remodeling, boom, here's my number. And from that, I got a lot of looky-loos and it was a highly competitive market at the time, so a lot of people wanting to get somebody in at the lowest possible price, and I was the new guy in the game who had just got my license, so I was the guy to fill that need. Since then, in the 17 years that have passed, I've transitioned that to becoming a custom home luxury estate builder. The last home we finished in the Bay Area was a $25 million, 10,000 square foot estate on 1 acre. And that's kind of our wheelhouse now in this construction game. So I'd like to think over that span of time, I learned a few things, and especially learned a few things that transitioned me from being just a guy hustling for scrap work to somebody who has a brand identity, is trusted in the industry and by clients, and gets referral work from clients and architects. And there were a few key things, and I jotted them down just to note. I started really reflecting on what are the key things, because I'm the same person that started out 17 years ago, but what are the key things with my company and my brand that were able to kind of transcend where I was in the market as a remodeler and small-time contractor to incrementally growing to be able to build larger scale projects. And in doing so, I really, three things jumped out at me that helped me make light year leaps and help me in capturing more clients and higher quality clients. I don't mean higher quality clients from the standpoint of better people, just higher quality projects rather. So the number one thing, and these are in no particular order, I just jotted down 3 bullet points. The number one thing that was a huge shift and change that I made was the level of transparency I had as a builder from the beginning of the project through to the end of the project. And the transparency for me really came in stages. First of all, it was a choice that I don't want to be the yes man early on. It's easy to be reactionary when you're first starting out and you want to please everybody. So your general response is, what's the response I can give you that's going to make you happy? And that just gets you nowhere quick, because it's a constant cycle of, oh, I don't want anyone to ever think that anything is not going as planned on the project. But then you remember, oh wait, I'm in construction. Huh. Yeah. Okay. So the transparency, I chose the tenet of 100% transparency about everything at all times to a fault. And it's easy to say that, but when you put it into practice, it actually is a lot harder, because you get these knee-jerk reactions where that when you say something that might not be super pleasing to a client, they might not like it. They might not like the fact that you told them the tile work was going to be done by Thursday and it's actually going to take an extra week for no good reason other than your tile guys dogging it. But when you can build the trust and have the confidence to tell them, Mike sucks this week and he's taking twice as long as he normally does because he's a human being, it builds a level of trust that I think is hard to replace. So that level of transparency, I think, is key. And once I adopted that philosophy, I really implemented it across the board. So initially in the proposal phase, I would be transparent with numbers. This is what it's going to cost to get the job. And if I was doing fixed price, this is what it's going to cost me to get the job done. This is how much I want to make markup. And there's a bit of a contingency, a fluff factor in there, because I know if it's going to cost me 30 and I'm charging you 45, I'm probably going to spend an extra 2 to 3 and just BS charges along the way that I'm not going to charge you because it's not cost plus. Or alternatively, it's going to be cost plus. Here's the exact cost down to the receipt from Home Depot for $3.52 that I had to buy a sponge for this particular sub on the project, and I'm marking it up 20%, which that's a good way to protect your profitability, although it doesn't allow you a ton of upside if you're taking the fixed fee gamble of locking in a client's cost, which a lot of times they like. However, on the fixed fee, what tends to happen, and a lot of times why it's rough and they don't like it, is you get into this scenario on a fixed fee where you might be showing sub pricing and then charging an alternative price. And this is where, again, transparency comes in. For instance, if you have a framer that's going to do a scope of work for $16,000 and you're telling the client that scope of work is going to be $25,000, if the client gets wind of that, it's not that you're doing anything particularly wrong. You're just building in your profit to a specific line item or scope of work. They just don't like it. The client likes to see everything laid out in front of them. They want to know what you're making. Whether you think that's right, wrong, or indifferent, that's client psychology. They don't like to think that you have fluff in line item numbers. So I just found that transparency about numbers, whether fixed price or cost plus, is just like super beneficial and builds a ton of client trust early on and throughout the project, and can actually help you win more projects because people like that level of transparency. But kind of moving on from that, pivoting and carrying transparency throughout the project. So keeping communication quick, swift, concise, and continual about what's happening, the good, the bad, the ugly. So everything's on schedule, budgets are great, here you go, here's your report. Everything's not on schedule, we're a week and a half behind, and oh, by the way, there was a $2,500 cost overrun because we ran into this behind the wall. Like, the client needs to know that immediately, and they're going to understand that if you're transparent. If you're not, and you have a bunch of fluff built in, and they might think that's the case, they're going to question everything that happens along the way. So the transparency, key. That really leapfrogged me from being the reactionary hustler without a process to starting to build my brand and my just excelling my client trust. Second, the having early on a detailed proposal and communication. So I tend to think, well, and I this is my truth. Builders are, for the most part, all very similar. I don't think that Builder A, even if he's a 50-person organization, is much better than Builder B if all things equal. Like, it should be this person can build the project correctly, and this person can also build the project correctly. And a lot of times the differentiator and why Builder B, that is a 50-person organization, and Builder A doesn't get a project is just because of what happens early on. And a lot of times early on, all that happens is better communication and a more detailed proposal. And I understand if you're a small organization or you're just a guy in a truck, it's really hard because you're probably working during the day and you have to go home in the evening and put together a proposal, spend your time, which could kind of creep into the evening hours. However, it doesn't take many to get yourself to a position where you're landing the bigger, better projects and you're more profitable, and then you could take that money and kind of use it as breathing room. Maybe you're hiring a PM, or maybe you're hiring someone to help you, and then you can continue to work on estimates and proposals to help continually keep the funnel full and sell. It's a hard hump to get over, but if you just start with one. I remember the first big project I landed, and it's funny because I had done multiple six-figure projects off of a single-page Excel spreadsheet budget. That was kind of par for the course. You're you're busy, you get a referral from somebody, hey, what's this going to cost? Here's an Excel sheet. This is your budget. That can go a lot of places, but a lot of times when people want to get work done and you've been referred to them, it's okay. However, in a competitive bidding scenario, it doesn't fly. And I remember the first project I landed that was kind of a little out of my comfort zone, but I really wanted it because I thought, well, if I get this project, it's gonna really propel me to, in construction, you seem to make these jumps. It's like I am. Let's just start at the basic level. I'm a bathroom remodeler. Well, you're a bathroom remodeler until you get a kitchen remodel, and then you become a kitchen remodeler because you've done a kitchen. And then you're a kitchen remodeler until someone asks you to renovate their whole house. And then you're a home remodeler until someone asks you to add an addition. Well, and then you do addition and remodeling. Until someone says, well, I need an ADU. Well, now you build secondary structures. Until someone says, I would like a new home. Now you're a home builder. Until someone says, well, now I have this piece of land and I want to build my estate with multiple buildings and a pool, and now you're in that game. So you tend to make these leaps. You don't really jump around. Like once you take a leap into that next cast of the construction hierarchy, that's where you live. But it's hard to make the leap, and you have to do something dramatic to make the leap. You don't just typically organically make the leap unless maybe you have a past client you did a kitchen remodel for and they really loved you, and then they decide that they're going to buy another house and they want to gut the whole thing. It's not typical that you remodel someone's kitchen and they go to their buddy who's going to build a house and say, hey, talk to Joe because he just remodeled my kitchen. I don't know, maybe take a flyer on him and see if he can build your house. I don't know if he can or not. It just doesn't work like that. See, it's that catch-22. You have to prove yourself before you do it. You have to do it to prove yourself. So, but one way to make those jumps and sell yourself on the fact that you can do it is to be competent and give a detailed proposal and have really good communication early on. So back to my story, I really wanted this new home, and I knew it would kind of propel me to the next level of home, because even within the new home category, it's, I build 2,000 square foot starter homes. I build 4,000 square foot custom homes. I build 6,000 square foot, like pretty custom homes. I build 8 to 10,000 square foot estate. Like you make these jumps, these tiers within the home building category. So I use this as an example, and instead of my typical spreadsheet where I would have line items and then I would break out each line item and give a brief rundown, I decided, okay, I'm going to take this project and I am going to completely rebrand the way I do construction proposals. And I got every sub bid. I printed out every single sub bid. I made a table of contents. I put it in a nice folder. I broke down our process on a 2-page Word document, how we work, what we do, pre-construction, during construction, after construction. Then I had a spreadsheet of all the values of the bids that I got from my vendors that I had printed out and put in with tabs in this awesome binder, and put that all together. So I essentially had an 1.5 inch thick binder of a little bit about my company, a table of contents, a spreadsheet, a scope of work, every sub bid accompanying, and then it also showed my percentage markup, 5 and 15, supervision and profit and overhead, and presented that to the client. And in presenting that to the client, I sat down not expecting or not knowing what to expect, rather. And the client was completely shocked because they had not seen anything like that from another builder, which shocked me because the competition that I thought I was going against, in my opinion, were much larger firms, much more organized. But they're not doing that. Like they have a different process, but I was the guy who had to prove myself, and in doing so, I brought like this bomber awesome proposal to the table. And because of that, I completely separated myself from the pack. And although I wasn't the most qualified to do the project, I was selected almost immediately to build that home, all based on my early on organization. And if I think about the time it took me to do that, an extra 6 to 8 hours. I mean, you're going to have to get your sub proposals anyway. You're going to have to review them. You're going to have to put it in a spreadsheet. So take a few extra minutes and just you look light years ahead of the competition as far as your level of organization and preparedness going into the project. So that's the second thing that really changed, in my opinion, is spend a little extra time early on a detailed proposal and on communicating to the client what they're going to get, and you'll instantly be ahead of 95% of the competition because they're not doing it. They're kind of taking for granted that they're just going to get the projects because they've been doing the projects because 20 years ago their dad started a company and slowly built up the company to the point where they have these projects, and since they have the projects, they're going to do the projects. That's who you're competing with for the most part, but those people can get tired and not really care about the process, so it leaves a lane for you to get in there and you know, make your mark and get your foot in the door. The third thing I jotted down, and this is a funny one because it seems like obvious, but uncompromised quality. And I mean, uncompromised quality is, in my opinion, pretty simple. The quality you give the client is the best quality. If something's wrong, you fix it. And if you're working with a sub who can't perform to like the level of quality you expect, you don't use that sub. So the uncompromised quality is, it shouldn't be a differentiator because you would think everyone would go into a project and know what they're doing and do it right. You'd think it would just be a given, but it's so not a given. And it blows my mind. So in this one with the uncompromised quality, it's one of those where it's like, okay, if you understand what I'm saying when I say uncompromised quality, then you understand. And if you don't understand it, well, I probably can't say much more to you, because you might just be caught in the matrix of doing shitty work or something. I don't know. But uncompromised quality, and if your clients know you provide uncompromised quality, the rest is simple because it takes that question in the decision-making process off the table. And when clients, it's so many times clients will ask, so, what is it that differentiates you and your quality from other builders? And I always answer this question the same exact way. I say, nothing. Anyone that should be bidding your home should be able to build the exact same house that I can at the same quality. I mean, to assume that you're going to be bidding on a multi-million-dollar new home against 3 to 4 different contractors, to make the assumption that any one of those 3 or 4 other companies are going to come in and do a shittier quality job, in my mind, is preposterous. Because how are you even in existence how are you even in this pool of bidders if you can't perform the work? So that's like the quality thing. The uncompromised quality is like such a non quantifiable thing to me. It's like you are or you aren't, and if you're in a certain realm, you have to be, and you have to make that decision to be. And sometimes it costs you money to be uncompromised quality, so you're uncompromised quality. It's going to get you a lot more money in the end than it is going to be to cut any kind of corner. So that was kind of a shit show rant about uncompromised quality, but I think it's very, very important. Like, so again, going back through this quickly: transparency, don't be a bullshitter; detailed proposal and communication. Put something nice together for the client. Just be detailed. Go for the A+ on the assignment instead of a C-. Why not? And uncompromised quality. Don't do shit work. I think that's the trifecta. You do those, there's no chance you're not going to score projects and probably excel in the building trades.